Yesterday we spoke about that. The root cause of bondage is ignorance. To remove ignorance is possible only by the knowledge of the self, Atmaikya Bodhi. See, even to understand that there is a root cause of bondage and then how it makes us suffer, how there's a false identification with the body, how to get out of that, there is some guidance which is required. So the next verse, what are the means to gain this knowledge? How does a person go about it? All that is explained from next verse also. So the eighth verse today, it says, Ato vimukyai prayateta vidvan sanyasta bhagyartha sukhasprahasan santam mahantam samupetya deshikam tenopadishtartha samahitatma. So he says here that Ato vimukyai prayateta vidvan. A person must strive for liberation. And who is this person who is a vidwan? He is not an ordinary person. Somebody who has studied the scriptures, what was said earlier, who has understood, who is even following some spiritual practices, that person must strive to seek liberation. Vimukyai, ato vimukyai prayateta vidvan. One must strive to attain this self-knowledge. And how should one do it? Sanyasta bhahyartha sukhasprahasa. Having renounced all the sense objects, bahya artha. One may say, oh, then it is not possible. The whole line one should read. This line here is not saying drop all the sense objects outside. It is not even saying drop enjoying those sense objects. Sukha, sanyasta bahya artha sukha. It is not saying stop enjoying. What it is saying, spurha. The craving for these sense objects, that craving has to stop. So he says, Sanyasta Bhahyartha Sukhas Prahasan. Give up the insatiable thirst for these sense objects. Because that is what makes the mind extroverted, and then attachments and everything else starts. By itself, the objects are not binding us. They are not coming and telling us anything. It is our craving which makes us run behind it. It is our own mind's imagination which makes us superimpose that if I go there, I will become happy. If I eat this, I will become happy. If I become that, I will become happy. And again, no doubt temporary happiness will be there in that. But what one is seeking is not the temporary happiness. So there are four aspects to our desire. There are four different words just for our understanding. Many times we use it interchangeably also. So those four words are Asha, Ichha, Spurha, Krishna. Four words. So Asha means a desire. But this Asha can be a weak desire. It just comes and goes. Insistence is not there. So a passing thought, it just comes. Many times a desire, even for satsang, is like a passing desire. Now and then one feels, okay, I should also try it out, but then it's okay, it goes. Same thing can happen with any sense objects. One may feel that, I must go here and try this out. The mind says it's okay, doesn't matter. Go. So Asha is a very weak desire. This is just to understand. Ichha is a stronger desire, where one feels that no, this has to be done. And one will start thinking of how to execute it, how to fulfill it. One will start planning the fulfillment of that desire. more seriously one takes it, one wants to enjoy it. So asha, ichha. Then spruha is where the continuous brooding on that happens, where one is imagining every time how one would feel when one enjoys that desire, when one fulfills that desire. And one then acts, one becomes very attached to it because brooding will lead to that attachment. And then one feels that without this, my life will not be happy. So that spruha is that craving created by brooding. And this brooding, when I'm having more and more craving, more and more extrovertedness, mind can't keep quiet till the desire is fulfilled. Gurudev would give a very simple example. He would say coffee. The moment that desire for drinking coffee comes in our mind, even if I'm doing a very important work, the mind will keep on saying coffee, 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 coffee. I can't concentrate till a point that I have to put aside the work, go find some coffee and get it and drink it. So the mind craves. It has built an equation that without this my life will not be happy. And so here it is that spruha. Spruha is sometimes fulfilled also, the desire is fulfilled, and then it leads to more spruha, more craving. For that moment it may be satiated. Again next time I crave for it more. So this craving is called spruha, which makes me dependent as well as extrovert. And last one is trishna. Trishna is that part where the craving increases. So spruha, when it is fulfilled, will lead to trishna. So here he says you drop this spruha. Samyasta bahya artha sukha spruhasan. For dropping spruha, if I have to go away from sense objects or I have to stop enjoying them, that is my call. When people are not interested in childhood toys, they drop the toys itself. Nobody says that, I will still play with the toys, but I will not depend on them. So in the world when we are living, many times we have the justification that why should I drop the objects? Why should I drop enjoying them? I will drop only my attachment. At one level it is fine, even principally it is fine, accepted. But really speaking, when there is no want for it, when there is reason above it, I literally also one will just drop it because there is no interest in that. One has played enough with the childhood toys, one has grown out of it, one does not bother about it. So here it is that a person who is striving for liberation, not interested in sense objects, may even drop, may even stop engaging with some sense objects. Both these, and it leads to dropping of the spruha. So it says drop this spruha, sanyasta bahya artha sukha spruhasa. And then what should one do? Go to a teacher. Pantam mahantam samupetya deshikam. Go to a teacher. Now go to a teacher, samupetya, means approach a teacher. Traditionally how they used to approach a teacher. When one goes to a teacher of Brahma Vidya, one carries a bundle of twigs on one's head and goes to the teacher, offers those twigs, surrenders to the teacher and asks for Brahma. In the Mundaka Upanishad it is said, Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmanaha. When a person has seen enough in this world, has experienced life, has gone through family, children, wealth, power, pleasure, seen, whatever had to be seen, one has seen. And the entire realm of action one has scrutinized. And what has one found? Na asti akrita kritena. There is no supreme happiness from action. Action can give temporary result. It will not give permanent bliss. So then to experience the supreme bliss, what will one do? Nirveda Maya. That person has got dispassion from the world. Dispassion in the sense one has understood that what I really demand cannot be fulfilled by the world. So one goes to a teacher because one has seen everything outside. Now the only way is to turn within. To help one to turn within, one has to go to the teacher. So tad vijnanartham sa guru meva bhigacche. That person goes to the guru to know the supreme truth. Tad vijnanartham. Doesn't go to the guru for some praise, some feel good factor, some encouragement, some motivation, or some tips, how to make my life better, how to solve my problem between me and my spouse, how to make my son follow what I want him to do. None of that. Tad vijnanartham goes to know that supreme truth. Saguru meva abhigacche. How does one go? Samit panihi, holding that samit on one's head. So in the earlier days when the ashram, they used to stay, the guru and then the disciples would go and stay with the guru in the ashram and study there. So what does the guru need? The guru is so fulfilled and so uh, blissful. The guru doesn't need anything for himself. So what does the student do? Take something to serve in the ashram. So rites and rituals are done, puja is done, yajna is done. So then take some dry twigs, offer it there. That is one meaning that I have come here in humility, I have come here to serve, I have come here to give, and I want to know the supreme truth. But the twigs are very symbolic. Then why does one carry it on the head? One can take it in the hand and just give it. These are beautiful symbolisms. That our head must be on fire. Head must be on fire means nowadays, so literally they are doing it. Very strange. They use fire for haircut. You get one style on the head. On some video I had seen. So that's not literally that was done by the masters at that time, by the students at that time. So what does this person do? The person actually carries it on the head as a symbolism that my intellect is burning with questions. I want to know. I have the sincere desire to know. So Swami Shivananda used to say that there are these 4 types of disciples. The first type of disciple, the best type of disciple is one who is like petrol. The moment petrol comes in contact with the atmosphere, it evaporates. The best type of student is one who comes in contact with the teacher. The teacher gives the knowledge, even just says the Mahavakya, or even just indicates, not even says, and the student will realize. Because the vasanas are so less, and the person is so fit and ready, realization happens instantly, then and there. The second type of disciple is one who is like the dry twigs. So the master has to light the fire. So some more effort is required. And then the fire will catch up and then that twigs will burn properly. So here is somebody who is intellectually very bright and brilliant, as well as emotionally one has enough vairagya, one has withdrawn from the external cravings and has gone to the teacher with a single pointed quest to know the truth. So the master gives the knowledge, the disciple stays there, reflects, contemplates, realizes that. First one only by listening. Second one, listening, reflection, contemplation. Third one is like charcoal. So this disciple, the master has to light the fire. And what happens is that the ashes of this charcoal, they will cover the very fire. So the fire will become dim in some time. So the master has to fan. And those ashes move away, the charcoal glows properly, and again the fire is bright. So this third type of student is like that. So the student starts walking the spiritual path with the guidance of the Guru, again gets distracted, again the Guru pulls him back, again some vasana comes up, again covers the desire for knowledge, again the Guru has to pull him back. This process goes on. So this takes more effort, more time. So the person has to live in upasana, one has to live in self-control, one has to do karma yoga, and then the Guru also gives the knowledge, then listen, reflect, realize. So this is a long process. And the fourth type of disciple is like the stalk of a plantain tree. So the stalk of a plantain tree is filled with water. Even if one tries to light the fire there, the water is so much that it will not catch fire easily. One has to actually dry it, put it in the sun, let the water evaporate, and then finally after many days one is able to use that to create some fire. On the contrary, if one tries without this drying process, the water may in fact put out the fire. There are some disciples who are like that. So in the name of spirituality, they will put up so much of external show, but inside they are fully having craving for sense objects. So even spiritual path, they will utilize only for sense enjoyment. If the disciple is like this, the Guru must not. If the Guru is firmly established in the truth, then that's a different matter. The Guru will be able to handle it. If the Guru is not established in the truth and one is a seeker, one should move away from that person. Because that person's materialistic tendencies or the craving for sense objects and pleasures will put off the fire here. So that is dussanga actually. One should move away from dussanga, go into satsanga. So here it is that a person must go to a teacher. Now many people ask, why should I go? Why do I need a guru? You know, one girl asked Puja Guru that, Swamiji, why do I need a guru? Books are there, cassettes are there, videotapes are there. That time, VHS tape was there. So the videotapes are there, books are there, cassettes are there. Why do I need a guru? Gurudev answered so beautifully. He said, go and ask this to the book. Very fact that one is asking that question. One can't ask questions to the book. And more importantly, the book doesn't know what is my level of evolution. So the book cannot customize the knowledge to my level. And most important, when I'm reading a book, I can fall asleep. Book will not even know. Guru is there, at least the Guru knows, can wake us up, can make us again come back and start contemplating. Anyway, that aside, very important aspect, why is a Guru required? First and foremost, many times we don't even know that we are bound. Who makes us even realize that we are bound? Very few people have the capability to identify bondage and the root cause of bondage on their own. Till we come under the grace of a Guru, under the wings of a Guru, we won't even know that there is something called bondage and we are bound. Awareness of bondage, that awareness also is ignited by the Guru. Through satsang, through some book I have read, through some quote one would have gone through some lecture, somewhere. Slowly one comes to understand, oh, there is something called bondage. And till now I was thinking I'm a free bird and I'm doing whatever I feel like in my life. I've achieved also what I wanted to achieve in my life. And everything is so fine and nice. So not even aware that there is bondage. Or even if I've got disappointments, rejection, problems, I may feel that there are issues in the mind or there are issues in the world outside. But that the ego is the problem, that ignorance is the cause, not aware. So a teacher is very, very important even to make me aware of the bondage. Make me aware of the root cause of bondage. Make me aware of where am I standing in this spiritual path, because there is no clear-cut path where it is so evident. Each one's vasanas are so different. So each one's path is also different. Now, where am I on the path? What are the milestones? What is the destination that I have to reach? That also is told by the Guru. We don't even know that our demand is for permanent happiness. We are thinking that some desire fulfillment, some enjoyment, some happiness in life. That's all. But that there is a state of permanent happiness, the state of fulfillment. So the goal also is not known by us. The Guru makes us aware exactly what is the goal, what is it that we are even seeking. And based on that goal, what is the means? If the goal is that which I am already seeking, supreme happiness is my nature, then I don't even realize it. Why? Because the mind is not available. So what is the means to know it is self-knowledge. To be ready for that self-knowledge, what are the sadhanas to be done? Preparation also is told by the Guru. And once I start walking the path, there will be obstacles which come on the path. How do I overcome those obstacles? Many of them are subjective obstacles. Can't go and tell anybody else out there. It is a weakness in my mind. It is some difficulty, challenge in my mind. Now I have to overcome that. The grace of the Guru, the guidance of the Guru, the presence of the Guru helps that person to overcome those challenges and ultimately reach the destination. Right from bondage, awareness of bondage to realization of the self, the entire process is by the grace and guidance of the Guru. And if we say that what Guru, which Guru, we don't need any Guru, no problem, start walking the path. At the right time, the Lord will ensure that the Guru comes. Because without this Guru, not possible to realize the truth. The scriptures are very clear about it. Acharyavan Purusho Veda. Only a person who has a Guru will know the truth. Because the truth is subtler than the subtlest. It is beyond body, mind, intellect. Now, how do I know that? Even if I see the scripture, even if I read the scripture, I need some living entity. If not a living entity, at least an entity who has gone through this journey, in whom I have faith. So if we say Puja Gurudev was a realized master, Vivekananda was a realized master, Anand Mahima was a realized master. At least we know that they have reached that destination. So what they are talking, if I start following that, I will reach there. And those who are realized masters, they are not, it is not that they are not there in their physical form, so they are absent. When I am able to tune up with their thoughts, Ishvara guides me through that thoughts. So the Guru is the one who indicates the subtlest of the truth. And most important is that our own ego plays so much of tricks with us. How is it even possible to get out of the ego until I have an altar of surrender and devotion? So it is the altar at which my ego surrenders. When I have love for the Guru, not because I love the Guru for any other reason, but I love the Guru because the person is established in the truth. And I'm able to surrender at that altar. So an altar of surrender is required for us. So Guru is very important. See, Ishvara is unmanifest. Grace of Ishvara is all pervasive. But we are not able to tap that. Guru is manifest. That's why in Vedanta we say Guru Sakshat Parabrahma. A Satguru who has realized the absolute is manifestation of Bhagwan. Because really speaking, Bhagwan alone is the true Guru. Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru. So that Lord who is the Guru comes to this particular form as a form of a Guru and guides all of us. So the truth being subtlest, ego playing tricks with us. We need a Guru who will help us to surrender this ego. And on the path when I'm walking, there are many times when I lose hope. Because the weaknesses of the mind, the agitations of the mind, the dependencies of the mind are so much that sometimes one loses confidence also in oneself. Because the mind plays tricks, the mind distracts us, mind takes us away. We may even land up doing things which we are not supposed to do. So we will fall into negative rut, guilt, low self-esteem, which again makes us feel bad. Again, we do wrong action. So this is a vicious circle. How do I break out of it? Faith in the Guru helps me to have faith in the Lord, faith in the scripture, and faith in oneself. This is not to say that I depend on the Guru, but this is to make me aware that the support of the Guru is very important to make me walk the path steadily. And when I fall, it is to help me to come up, to lift myself. Even great incarnations like Lord Krishna and Ram, they had a Guru. Bhagwan doesn't need a Guru. But when Bhagwan takes avatar, Krishna Bhagwan had his Guru. His name was Rishi Sandipani. And Bhagwan Ram had a Guru. His name was Vasishtha. And he had Vishwamitra also. And later on, Agastya Rishi also taught him the Aditya Hridaya. How many Gurus he had? So Bhagwan doesn't need a Guru, but then Bhagwan also takes up the role as a student and sets the ideal for us that we must seek a Guru and approach the Guru with humility. Because if I want knowledge, then humility is the first criteria. A mind which is full of pride will never gain knowledge. It's like a cup which is already full with water or with tea. I can't put anything more inside. So the mind must be able to surrender. And the surrender and humility comes when I understand that here is a master who is realized, who is absolute, who has established himself or herself in the absolute truth. And I surrender, and this humility comes forth. So however great a person may be, see the word you here you also use is Vidwan. He may be a Vidwan, well versed in the scriptural knowledge also, but still go to a Guru. Samopetya Deshika. Santam Mahantam Samopetya Deshika. So in one commentary on the Upanishads, Shankaracharya has written a very powerful line. So he wrote there that Shastrajna api swatantrena brahma jnana anveshanam na kurya. Even if you are a Shastrajna, well versed in the scripture, don't inquire into Brahman or pure consciousness on your own, swatantrena. Anveshanam na kurya. Meaning go to a teacher. Because this truth is not known by mere scriptural study or by logical thinking. It is something beyond the body, mind, and head. Even the very existence that does such a truth, does it even exist? I need somebody to be able to demonstrate that by their own life. So the Guru is the living example of what the scripture is saying. Now such a teacher, how do we find? We don't have to go in search of the teacher. If we cultivate the demand, the supply will come. Discipleship, if we cultivate what was said earlier, all those qualities, humane qualities, scriptural study, steadfastness in one's own sadhana, if those we start creating, Guru will be there in our life. The Guru will come knocking at our doors. And many times the opportunities also are brought to us by the Lord, whereby one is led to the teacher. So that we don't have to worry, that the Lord will ensure that that happens to us. Gurudev always used to say, we don't have to go for Guru hunting. The right Guru will come to us in our life. And if at this time there is a particular teacher in my life, then that is the teacher through whom I learn. If there is a demand for greater knowledge and another teacher has to come, from within it will happen, externally also it will happen. So I don't have to worry about that. Here it is that this student approaches a teacher, must have found some teacher there who is established in the truth. So goes to such a teacher. Now, three words are used for a teacher. Now we saw the need for a guru. Why is, well, I mean, what are the three words used here? Santam. Santam means person who is established in the Sat. One who knows that my nature is pure existence, this body, mind, intellect is only a form. Like gold is the essence. And that gold is then made into a bangle, into an anklet, into a ring, into a bracelet. Those are forms. But the essence is gold. Same way the essence of all of us is pure existence, consciousness and bliss. One who is firmly established in truth. That is the first quality of a Sadguru. Sadguru means the person who has known Sat and who can remove our darkness of Sat, of pure existence. Gu means darkness and Ru is to remove. So one who removes the darkness of ignorance, and ignorance of what? Ignorance of Sat, ignorance of pure consciousness. So the qualification of a teacher is what? First he is here, Santam, one who is established in pure consciousness or existence. Then Mahantam, one who does not depend on anything outside for one's happiness. That independent entity, that person is called Mahantam. Santam Mahantam. One who has experienced that happiness is my nature, it does not come from anything outside. So one does not depend on anything or anyone or any situation outside for one's own happiness. That strong, mighty person who has experienced that happiness is me. Not that I have to become happy. I am happiness. And that I is not the ego, that I is the supreme bliss, consciousness. So in our mind, the equation is reverse. I plus object is equal to happiness. That's the equation in our mind. I plus pizza is equal to happiness. I plus this job is equal to happiness. I plus this much promotion is equal to happiness. There's a lot of equations. Basic equation is I plus object is equal to happiness. When this object is removed, in the sense either the object is removed because I transcend desire or no dependency at all. Then what happens? I is equal to happiness. That is the experience of this person. It's very strange, you know, how delusion plays. Who needs whom actually? I need the object or the object needs me? Actually speaking, the objects are not, you know, they derive their utility value only because of our use. Otherwise their existence is useless. But today we feel the other way. And our existence is useless without those objects. So there's a dependency on the objects, psychological dependency. Person who has completely dropped all psychological dependencies on object, people, situations, and is abiding in one's own nature as happiness. Santam Mahantam. The word Santa comes from Sat. Mahanta. Again, very nice word. Mahaanta. One who has ended completely. What? All dependencies. Santam Mahantam. Then Deshikam. One who indicates. One who points the truth to us. So first two qualities, Santam Mahantam, are to indicate that the person is established in the truth. And such a person who is established in the truth points out the truth to us. Deshikam. So a person who has gone, let us say somebody who has gone to Mount Everest, knows the way, understands the challenges, that person can guide other people who want to go up there. Because one has already gone, one has experienced it. Same way, somebody who has experienced and is established in the truth is then pointing out that the truth is your own true nature. And from such a teacher, when I listen to the truth, if my mind is ready, realization will happen instantly. Ananya Prokte Gatiratra Nasti, Kathopanishad says. That is a way to realize the truth. When somebody who is experiencing this truth points out to us, then we realize the truth. And that's why the teacher is so important, because a candle which is lit or a lamp which is lit is required to light another lamp. Same way here, Santam Mahantam. Samupetya Deshikam. Now, who is the Deshika? The one who points out the truth to us. The pointing out of the truth is because the truth is infinite and infinity cannot be defined. It can only be indicated. It's not an object. It doesn't have qualities, name, form, nothing. But it can be indicated that the nature of this is pure consciousness, existence, bliss. It is unborn, unchanging, immortal, eternal. These are all pointers. And what do these pointers do? They help us to destroy all wrong notions about the truth. And what remains when all the wrong notions are destroyed is the infinite reality. So the truth is not an object of perception, an object of feeling. It is the infinite reality. And we are using words like infinite, existence, reality. Idea is that they are only indicators to say that it is not finite, it is not unreal, it is not of the nature of non-existence. When my notions about truth are removed, I remain in a state of awareness. That's when I realize the truth. So, person who points out the truth, and not only points out that this is the nature of truth, but points out that that truth is your true nature. That person is called as a Deshika. To point out the truths, volumes of scriptures are also written. Entire Vedic knowledge is to reveal the identity of Jiva with Ishvara. So the Mahavakyas, Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, Ayam Atma Brahma, Prajnanam Brahma, these are four major Mahavakyas. These four, and there are many other Mahavakyas which reveal that my true nature is one with the Supreme essentially. The teacher points out through these Mahavakyas. Steadily contemplating on it, one will wake up to the truth. So, that supreme truth is indicated by the teacher. And how does the teacher indicate? Using the scriptural declarations, like Mahavakyas. Hence, the two qualifications of a teacher are Brahmanistha and Shrotriya. Brahmanistha means established in Brahman, established in truth. And Shrotriya means well versed in the scripture. So one who is well versed in the scriptural logic, examples, tradition, is very easily able to point out the truth to the disciple, depending on what is the level of that student, and help the student to rise. So Santam Mahantam Samupetya Deshitam. Tena Upadishtartha Samahitatma. By the Upadesha of that person, dish means to is a direction. Upadesha means words which help us to turn our mind in a particular direction. Many people think Upadesha means advice. That is one meaning. Upadesha literally means to give a direction. Dishati means to point out a direction. So to direct our mind away from the sense objects, away from the enjoyment, and away from the craving, and then to turn it towards the truth. That is the effort that we have to put to gain self-knowledge. And in that process, the teacher guides us by telling us more about the truth, by making us want to live the truth. When we see the life of a teacher, it will be inspiring that this is called the glory of a human life. What was said in verse number 2, so many blessings which are there are so rare. When a person sees a teacher, then one feels this is what I want to be. Be established in the truth, be unaffected by the world and whatever is happening in the world. Have no dependencies on anything. Experience fulfillment every moment. And then serve the society out of that fulfillment. When we see the life, see each of these people, their life, how mighty their life is, how inspiring it is. Vivekanandaji's life, Anandamayi Ma's life, Mirabai's life, Tukaram's life, so many great masters. And one of the best things I can do to intensify my spiritual sadhana and especially my quest for moksha is read the biographies of saints, biography or autobiography. Read their lives, Santa Charita. More I see how from what state they were, how they lifted themselves to the state of pure consciousness. What are the challenges they went through? What was their firm resolve? How did they discover that reality? The more I read about them, more will be my tuning with that way of life and as well as the goal. One will start questioning, what am I doing? This human life is so precious. And here are people who have experienced such great truths. In and through whatever I am doing, I can also have the attitude I am a seeker and start walking the path. And it will intensify that seeking. So Upadesha means to give that direction. By the right knowledge, our mind is directed towards the truth. Tenopadishtartha samahitatma. Samahita means, so samahit word comes from the root word called dha. Dha means to dadhati, to place. Samahita comes from that, meaning to settle down the mind, to place it. Opposite of samahita, the state of samahita is asamahita or vikshipta, very disturbed. So before one goes to the teacher, the mind may be disturbed, the mind may not be single pointed, mind may be steeped in ignorance, so it's not samahita. But once I start doing the sadhana, once I surrender to the teacher, once I follow the pointers given by the teacher, then what happens? The mind is well placed. Dha in the past passive participle becomes hita, means to place. Samahita means placed very well that it will not move after that, meaning firmly established. In what? Atma. Tenopadishtartha samahitatma. that person's mind is firmly established in the clear knowledge that my nature is Brahma. My nature is Atma, the self. Satchitanand is my true nature. That person has gone beyond the mind, has experienced the peace which will never be disturbed. It is not the peace of mind, it is the peace of the self. Quietening the mind, contemplating on the truth, one experiences that state. So, Tenopadishtartha Samahitatma. So, in one verse, actually, the whole means of wisdom is given by Shankaracharya. That having turned the mind away from the cravings with an intense desire to know the truth, a person must go to a teacher and listen to the Upadesha, and through reflection, contemplation, come to get established in the Tenopadishtartha Samahitatma. So this is the means of gaining self-knowledge. Now remember, this whole thing is meant for a seeker who wants to realize the supreme consciousness. In this much, if there are any questions, you are welcome to ask.
Swamiji, I have a question. So right now, I don't know if I am craving for self-knowledge. Right now, I'm just, as I said, craving for uh, to feel peaceful and that happiness moment to continue longer. So I don't know. I think that is right now my unconsciously. That is all that I understand right now. That I should, if I am feeling more and more happy in the day, in the whole day in my life, the how do you explain it? Like the feeling of happiness is longer and the agitation goes fast whenever my mind gets agitated. So right now I'm only aiming, I don't know, I only know how to aim for that. I don't know how to look further or think of the further.
So the desire will come when you are satisfied with this temporary happiness. See, one aspect is whether we know it or not, our demand is for supreme happiness.
Yeah, I guess.
That we don't, whether we may not know it right now because we are identified with the enjoyment of the daily life, and that is okay. In time, when you feel okay, this is not enough, I need to seek a state of fulfillment, then it will come.
Mm.
So what happens is the person is at least able to, one knows that there is a state like this. So the mind is not then unaware. When one feels some sense of lack of fulfillment or incompleteness, then one knows, okay, really this is because I don't know that my nature is pure happiness or permanent happiness. At least the knowledge is there, so the desire for it will then come.
Like this now, whatever I'm following the script, whatever I'm learning from the mission, whatever I've been following, is giving me some sort of peace. It is like a lot of questions of mine. The puzzle is like a puzzle, it's falling in place. That why, what, everything, what is happening to me, what is happening, why I'm thinking. That is making a difference. So slowly, uh, the scriptures will help me if I keep following. Like
That's also okay.
it'll make my mind pure, maybe purer.
Hari Om Swamiji. My question is about the three cycles we studied yesterday.
Yes.
That is the ignorance cycle, karmic cycle, and the transmigration cycle.
Yes.
In that, can you please make this clear that from incompleteness to the tendencies, this step is not clear to me.
Yeah. So incompleteness is apurnata. This apurnata is felt by all of us when we identify with the incomplete. So false identification with the BMI makes me feel incomplete. Now, when I feel incomplete, to become complete, based on my tendencies, I start desiring things. Those tendencies have come to me because of my past karmas. So if when I feel incomplete, I give you a very mundane example. When I feel hungry, If I love South Indian food, I will go and crave for South Indian food. If somebody loves chaat, will go for chaat. Somebody loves Punjabi food, will go for the Punjabi food. It is their tendencies. Now their tendencies are making them go to certain fields to experience, to eat that food and to satiate the hunger. So in the same way, each one, according to their tendencies, are craving different things to experience Purnata. And these tendencies have come to me because of my immediate past or distant past, through my own karmas, through certain repeated choices that I have made. Those tendencies have been formed, and then the mind, whenever it feels incomplete, will go there. Like in today's life, also we see the examples. When TV was not there, our mind used to find different other methods of entertainment. When the TV came, and by repeatedly watching the TV, now I've created a tendency that whenever I feel bored, I will put on the TV. So it is like that.
Thank you and Hari Om Swamiji.
I hope you have the commentary of Puja Gurudev. You know, in this Vivek Chudamani, one of the best commentaries I found is Gurudev's commentary. Otherwise, there are one or two more other commentaries which are there. There is one of the best commentaries which I found is Gurudev's commentary. So in this, he explains in one place, in one para very nicely, that the divine attitude of full receptivity is the aroma of a heart which has reverence for and surrender to, faith in and love for the Guru. These are therefore insisted upon in the Shastras. But they may seem to the modern man as arrangements set up by a team of social criminals to loot and plunder the credulous public. Such an opinion reflects the level of decadence into which the modern man has fallen. So what this institution of a guru and disciple is meant for, and what is happening in today's mind, in today's life, no doubt there are people, even in the past there were people who used to exploit people in the name of being a guru. But those are not to be generalized. Today that is what has happened. One has generalized a lot. So the faith in spiritual life also is growing because of this. So in the commentary, Gurudev speaks about that why this teacher is very important and how one must have that clarity that through the teacher one gains the knowledge. And one thing Gurudev said very, very powerful. He said, don't have a teacher who is in the living form. Because to have a teacher in the living form requires tremendous faith in our own mind. That we must have faith that this teacher is established. That takes time to build. Till then, what do? Have the teacher who is not in the physical. And understand that the Guru, that the Supreme Lord, Ishvara, guides the seeker through that teacher also. So whichever way it works better, either have Shraddha in a living Guru if you have a Sadguru, that is the best. If not, have Shraddha in a Guru who is not in the physical form, but know that the Supreme Lord will guide me through this form. Either of these are fine. So more about this we shall continue in our next month session, 5 days. If you have got the book, I would suggest that for these 8 verses, please read the commentary of Puja. That is a homework that you can do, and definitely it will be very, very beneficial.
Swamiji, we have a session tomorrow also, right?
No. 5 sessions only, no?
There's a fourth one.
Fourth day.
Oh yes, tomorrow also. Sorry, I thought we started on Monday. But tomorrow, one more day. Saturday, tomorrow. Yeah, we have tomorrow also.
Hari Om Shri Guru